So today we'll deep dive into tools that can support the transition to circular cities. We'll hear from experts and practitioners about the potential of those tools, and we'll discuss together how to scale up this approach to make EU cities more sustainable. In terms of programs, so we have 3 speakers today. First, Valentina Frosini from P2P Lab will introduce us to the Reflow governance toolkit, a set of tools that can support cities when engaging in a circular transition. Next, Andrea Patrucco from Milan City will give us insight on how they've actually used some of the tools from the Reflow project in developing circular strategies in relation to the food sector. And finally, we'll have Claudia Alessio from Circle Economy, who will be presenting us her approach to circular cities with some tools that they have recently developed. So in terms of practicalities, feel free to use the Q&A feature during the presentations to ask direct questions to the speakers. They will reply after their respective sessions, and we'll also have a few minutes at the end of the webinar to answer some final questions. So as I mentioned earlier, this webinar is part of the Reflow project. So I will first provide you with a few slides about the context of the project before we move on to the speakers. So in terms of context and background, well, over the past 50 years, our human society has grown exponentially, and so have our impacts on the planet. For instance, since 1950, our human population has doubled in size. Annual CO2 emissions have increased by 150%, and we've seen an outstanding decline in biodiversity by 60%. And the impact of this growth basically is being felt at the Earth system. And if we look at the planetary boundaries framework, which define 9 critical environmental boundaries that define humanity's safe operating space, well, scientists tell us that 3 boundaries have already been crossed: biodiversity, climate change, and biogeochemical flows. So the problem is that we can see already these impacts at Earth scale, but we can also see it at human scale. And we realize that a lot of those challenges are interconnected and are sort of growing in terms of impact. So one way to actually address those arising challenges is to obviously change and transform our economy. And we believe that looking at it from a city perspective can actually be a good starting point to make a change. So cities, as we know it, occupy 3% of global land surface, but they actually consume 75% of global resources, and they produce 60 to 80% of greenhouse gases. And the problem here is that these kind of trends are increasing and cities are growing. And we expect by 2050, more than 66% of people living on this planet will actually be living in cities. So we need to actually rethink how to design and govern cities and look at it from a regenerative and circular economy perspective. Why? Because we believe that actually circular economy can offer an integrated set of solutions that provide different specific benefits, whether it's job creation, whether it's resource savings, obviously having a healthy environment, and also bringing a more stronger resilience. So that's basically the context of where Reflow starts. Reflow being an EU project that started about 2.5 years ago, and that aims to understand how actually we can look at urban metabolism through analyzing material flows and co-create and test sustainable strategies, looking at different stakeholders at stake: businesses, local authorities, and citizens. The approach is actually pretty much embedded in using also Fab Labs and Makerspace, and surrounding that, having a different set of stakeholders. I mentioned local governance, citizens, businesses, researchers, and academics. And we try to actually develop, co-create solutions related to specific streams of waste and resources in 6 pilot cities: Berlin, Amsterdam, Milan, which will be introduced today, Vejle, Cluj-Napoca, and Paris. So what are we expecting from this project? It's a set of different outcomes handbooks and toolkits, and Valentina will be presenting one today. A set of documentations, business strategies, prototyping solutions, IT platforms as well, and obviously a set of capacity building solutions, and that webinar is basically included in that. But without further ado, I would like to introduce Valentina Frosini from P2P Lab. Valentina has a PhD in design and sustainability with experience in research and academia. And within Reflow, she's in charge of the governance work package. And she will be able to introduce us today to what she's been working on in terms of governance tools and methods. So Valentina, please.
Thank you, Erwan, for your introduction, and good morning to everyone. I'm going to share my screen, and this morning I would like to very quickly introduce you to the Reflow Collaborative Governance Toolkit, which is one of the resources of our project Reflow. The toolkit is designed as a website, and it's hosted in our Reflow main web domain as a sub-page. I would like to highlight that this morning the presentation I'm going to share with you has two main parts. The first one is related to the toolkit as it stands now, because the toolkit as it stands now is not the final version. We'll have an upcoming version. The final version will be by the end of the Reflow project, and what I would like to quickly present also the upcoming version in this presentation this morning. So as you can see, as I said, the Reflow Collaborative Governance Toolkit is a website, and on the top of the slide you can see the link. If you want, during the presentation you can navigate a bit through the different content and pages of the website. I would like to first of all to say that the toolkit is basically a practical resource, a collection of tools that is rooted in the concept of collaborative governance, that for us is a key lever for transition toward circular and regenerative cities. Here in the slide, as you can see, we have the landing page. And as you can see, we have in the menu, we have 4 main sections in the website, and I would like to very quickly go through the content of each section to introduce you to the toolkit. So let's start to the About section. Here you can see our framework, meaning that for us is a very important element, because all the toolkits is based upon this framework. This is really our backbone. And the reason why I'm going to present very quickly this visual is twofold, basically. One point is because this helped me better explain you the concept of collaborative governance here in Reflow. And the second reason is because this is the system tag of our toolkit collection of tools. So let's start from the first point. So what's collaborative governance? Collaborative governance as an open-ended infrastructuring process, meaning that, as you can see here, we think to collaborative governance as a continuous work of discovering, learning, and acting for a present and future collaboration. This infrastructuring refers to 3 main dimensions, as you can see here in the visual: the strategic, the operational, and the relational. Strategic means that at this level, governance refers basically to the alignment across actors and agendas, whereas at the operational levels, here we are referring, the focus is on building operational capacities in order to allow circular experiment and activities, whereas in the relational level, we are referring particularly to the to build trust, shared value, agency, and legitimacy. So this is the concept related to the governance, to the collaborative governance here in Reflow. And the second reason for the presentation of this visual, as I said, is related to the system tag, because in our collection of tools, we refer to infrastructures and levers in order to tag our tools. As you can see here, along the continuous work of discovering, learning, and acting, we have these elements that are levers. And levers, as you already know, I think, are basically a set of instruments that creates leverage to steer the transition toward circular and regenerative cities. So let's move to the Toolbox page. Here you can find an overview of our collection of tools that for the moment are 11 tools. And I said for the moment because we are going to update this collection of tools, since this is not the final version of our toolkit. As I already said, as you can see, every tool is tagged according to the three strategic, operational, and relational, and the levers. These icons refer to levers. As you can see here, many of our tools refer to more than one dimension. This is because in many cases, dimension overlap in different tools. And this is because these kind of tools, as you can see if you navigate a bit in our website, are, I would say, advanced tools, meaning that, for example, in the circular experiment canvas, we are not just referring to the experiment canvas, so the operational dimension, but on the left or on the right, sorry, of the canvas, we have a space that is related to the stakeholder and the governance related to the circular experiment that you are going to define. So that's why in this case, for example, we have this two dimension of operational and relational. If you click on one of the tool, you'll be redirected to the specific tool card that basically is every tool as a specific card. And as you can see on the top, you can find again the system tag, the name, what is it? So a brief explanation of the tool. In the center, you can find the preview of the tool with a button related to the download. In this case, for the moment, you can download the tool as PDF. And in the final part, you can find the reason why you have to use the tool and the main step in order to better understand how to use and go. You'll be able to download the PDF, and every tool as first page report the description of the tool itself, meaning that we report exactly the same description you can find in the tool card on the website. So what is it, why use it, and the main step. And this is the case, for example, of the circular theory of change. I would like to highlight that for every tool, we on the PDF file, we suggest a suitable site to print the tool, because for example, in this case, we are referring to the circular theory of change, and you perfectly know that theory of change is not a kind of tool that you are going to use just one time, but you have to use this tool over time along your process. So you have to reuse many times the tool. So that's why you have to print this kind of tool in a very big size. Then in the same page of the tool card, if you scroll down, you can find these other two sections. One is related to, when you can find basically the interconnection with some other tools. The reason why we created this section is because in some cases, some tools are preparatory to others. This is the case, for example, with the circular experiment canvas tool and the circular experiment deployment canvas tools. So these kind of tools, for example, are connected, but we have other cases where, for example, some tools are more or less connected to others that could basically some tools can help final user to better understand the other tools. So we think that this kind of connection is needed. And then we have related resources, where we basically suggest some external resources that could be useful for better filling the canvas, the specific canvas we are referring to. Finally, we have the fourth section, that is Toolkit in practice, that for the moment here we are hosting two initiatives that are connected to the to circular and regenerative cities, that are the FAB City Global Initiative and Circular Cities Declaration. And this is an explanation in order to highlight the importance and the relevance of this kind of initiatives for circular, to achieve circular and regenerative cities. And the stories section is related to our pilots, where we are going to showcase the main learnings of our stories according to their proper scenario with the governance lens. For the moment, we have just two stories, Milan and Vele, and we are going to, in these upcoming weeks, to update with our last 4 pilots. As I said at the beginning, I'm going to introduce you to the upcoming version of our toolkit. The first new part of the toolkit will be related to the Toolbox page, where we are going to introduce a filtering system on needs basis. The reason why we are going to introduce this part is because we realize that we need to guide a bit the final users to select the right tool according to the progress of the city, to the different needs of the moment. So that's why we decided to introduce this kind of filtering system. And the nature of this filtering system is because the approach of this toolkit is related to the nature of this toolkit is to provide a loose compendium of tools. So the idea is not to provide a prescriptive specific journey, but instead create a compendium of tools that could be generative. So that's why we don't have a specific journey or a specific metrics to refer to. And we prefer to introduce this kind of filtering system that is loose enough to allow this generative approach for different cities. As you can see, it's very simple. And also in this case, we are referring to our framework, so strategic, operational, and relational dimension. And for the moment, we have 9 different needs. It's very simple. If you click in one needs or more than one, the system will cluster for you the related tools. Then we are always in the Toolbox section. If you scroll down in the final version, you'll find this mirror board button. If you click in this button, you'll be redirected to the mirror board. Well, you'll find all the canvases of our collection of tools redesigned with the element of mirror, so we'll not copy and paste of the PDF tools. And in the mirror board, you'll find all the tools of our collection, the empty canvases, and filled canvases, filled with general examples, also in this case to help final user better understand the tools and how to use them. Then, obviously, as I already mentioned, we are going to update the tools with an alignment with our colleagues, because we are now running in the work in Reflow, the implementation phase. So in many cases, our colleagues are using or use some tools that are irrelevant for our collection. So at the end, maybe we'll have about 15 tools as final collection of tools. I am at the end. In the toolkit in practice, we are going to update also this section with a new part that will be as proof of concept, because in the upcoming weeks, we are going to run several workshops with our pilots in order to define specific outputs according to the different scenario and about the governance model. So basically here, we would like to showcase the result of this kind of workshop. Again, this is the link to our website. At the end of this webinar, we would like to share with you a survey in order to collect your feedback and comment that could be very useful for us for improve our toolkit. So I stop here, I stop sharing, and I really thank you for your attention, and I leave the floor to you, Erwan.
Thank you, Valentina, for this quick but precise presentation of the governance toolkit. I will now give the floor to Andrea Patrucco from the City of Milan, Project Officer of the City of Milan, currently active as a strong member of the Milan pilot for Reflow. Andrea has a background in urban planning and is an expert in urban rural development, And you will be actually introducing us to what has happened in Milan when in the context of Reflow. So Andrea, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Irwan. I'm very happy today to represent, I can say, the part of the Reflow that are testing the solution and all the activities that we are organizing in our last 2 years. My name is Andrea. I'm working for the municipality of Milan. I'm urban planner, and I'm working for the urban economy department. And the reason why the municipality of Milan decided to work in Reflow is also because our department is managing, I can say, the covered market, and all these physical assets are connecting to the food flows. Today, I will give you a description of the process that we have in the last 2 years to arrive to define our solution. And I will describe you one of the solution because of the time, of course. We start from the idea that food for the city of Milan is a key asset. As you know, in 2015, we had a universal exposition with the topic of feeding the planet. After that events, the food became a crucial aspect in which to invest at public and private level in Milan. And also because our vision on circular economy for us is a cross-cutting issues, and also considering our networking. We are a member of Ellen MacArthur Foundation and Circular Economy 100 network on food, for example. Then we decide to focus at Milan level on this new concept of food market, and the idea to boost circular transition and engage in different kinds of stakeholders, startups, NGOs, public company, in order to define a sustainable solution, micro solution that can be connecting to this vision. Our pilot is organized, is managed by the municipality of Milan, by our department, but our technical partners, as Irwan said before, are the Fab Labs, the market space. So we have 3 urban Fab Labs. We make Open Dot and Polyfactory, that is the makerspace of the Polytechnic of Milan. And they play an important role for the development of the solution. Our pilot is based on covered market and the wholesale market at Milan level as place to co-produce circular solutions. So to identify this place not as traditional place, but to try to work with them and the stakeholders that are involved in an innovative way. So the idea is to combine the food flow that already exists with the entrepreneurial and experimental attitude of the Fab Labs. That is a news for us. The idea is so involving actors, startups, public companies, and NGOs, also to define new circular business model in the food sector. We start from an analysis, metabolism analysis, and circular practices that already exist. So identifying the agri-food materials that are our central point of our experimentation, the technologies that already exist and what we can leverage on, and also the people and the governance model of the food market. So we decide to focus we start working on these 23 municipal cover market. We have a first analysis of 5 of them. As you can see in the map, this cover market are located in peripheral area of Milan. So in area that is not so simple, also the organization of the flows and also the opportunity to work directly with specific stakeholders. But during the process, also because we had this during the 2020, of course, because of the situation, the pandemic situation, we decided to focus also more on this foodie hub. The foodie hub is the Milan general market for wholesaler, for fruit and eggs, fish, meat, and flowers. That is connecting to the cover market because all the vendors that are working on the municipal cover market are are buying the fruit and eggs from the foodie hub. So the connection are strictly related. With the support of Reflow and the help of Metabolic, that is a partner of Reflow, we decide to focus on an analysis at Milan level about the food consumption and the Milan food waste. This Sankey diagram that now we have no opportunity to go in depth, describe us and help us and also our public company to identify better the data that are existing, identify some potential gaps in which in the future during the project we can leverage and working for the solution. Just to give an example about the food waste, more or less the 58% of the household food waste is considered to be avoidable food waste. So this was a point that for us was important to identify the other solution. Also the fact that the household, the 70% are more or less the main market to use fruit and veg products was another important point. And the 40% in general about the products are, of course, vegetable and fruits. Then we have a focus specific on this Milan wholesale market, that is Sogemi. So Sogemi is the name of the public company that is managing the wholesale market. And this work for us opened the eyes and they have the opportunity to systematize the data in order to identify some potential gaps, specifically, for example, about the data. So around the 10–15% of the products are not properly counted. And another point is the fact that 16% of the products are redistributed by local NGOs to people in need. This is another point that for us was really important. This market was a market that is working, of course, at the international level. Anyway, is organized for the 71% of the sold products by product from Italy. So we can say that this market is also working in a local market. So considering this important phase of analysis, we decide to focus our action plan on a I can say iterative process based on 3 phases: co-creation, co-design, and co-production with our stakeholders that help us to identify the solution. So we start to identify with a co-creation workshop the scenarios in which we're working on, and then to work on solution in order to co-design with them the idea that we can be that we can prototype with them. Now, in this phase, we are finishing the prototyping phase and we are starting the test phase. This for us is very important because, of course, with a European project like Reflow, we had the opportunity to identify a specific solution, test this solution, and see the benefit and the impacts in order to have potential, I can say, governance and policy recommendation for the future. This was a map after our first co-creation activity, in which we identified the area in which we're working on. So we identify, for example, the topic of upcycle and the food waste system, the topic of the agri-food chains, considering the urban and peri-urban production. Also, the physical area and the market infrastructure was one of the parts that we want to leverage on the project, and the logistic retail and chains system. A cross-cutting scenario was about the business and organizational model for circular food system, and specifically for food market, the food cover market. So, passing from the scenarios to use case, we identify 3 specific solutions that are managing by our, I can say, makerspace and Fab Lab. So, the Food Market 4.0 dashboard that is managed by Polytechnic of Milan, that is an integrated system that combining hardware and software solution for track and manage and analyze the data of food flow for the cover market of the city of Milan. The idea in this dashboard is to connect directly from producer to neighborhood level all the process in one dashboard. And with the opportunity of the testing and the prototype phase in Reflow, we will have a specific focus among the connection, the food connection between the wholesale market to a specific municipal cover market that is called Morsenchio, that is one of the peripheral, is located in a peripheral area of Milan. A second case that I will go in depth today is the food is zero waste, is managed by OpenDot. Is an automated communication system for all the surplus fruit and vegetable products that are available in the Sogemi market, in the foodie market, to selected NGO. One of them is Recoup. Recoup is one of our stakeholders. Recoup plays an important role in order to collect these leftovers from fruit and vegetables and to redistribute them to people in need, also through other local NGOs like the Red Cross of Milan. The third case is managed by WeMake and is a distributed system of mapping, collection and exchange of the waste material as a starting point for different higher level products, so to upcycle this. And one of the technical support that Reflow offers us is Reflow OS that will help us to track and trace this match supply and demand for surplus food. We will have a specific test. This test will be with a startup, is Hybrida Beer. Hybrida Beer works with bakeries at neighborhood level to collect unsold bread to transform it in beer instead of the malt. My last part of the presentation is an example of what I mean with practically test with our stakeholder. The food is zero waste is a solution that encourages donation, facilitate the management, and increase the distribution on unsold items. This is a very important aspect considering the pandemic situation. In the last 2 years, the donation and the redistribution increased in the wholesale market. And so we decided to leverage this demand in order to create a tool to help the local NGOs to better optimize the processes. So the goal in general is to recover the 100% of the unsold fruit and bags. This is our big goal. So the idea is to optimize the processes of the NGOs, to make more efficient the transaction between the actors that are working, they are still working in Sogemi market. Digitalize the flows and collect the data is another very important point for all the actors that are involved. And of course, also to imagine innovative system to facilitate the communication among the stakeholders. That communication in a wholesale market is not very simple. So how it works very practically. A first group of wholesaler needs to give a notification to Recoup. To do this notification, OpenDot developed this tool that you can see in yellow. Is a sort of Tamagotchi, I can say. It's very simple because it's used by people that work in a dirty place, in a messy place. So this information displayed, they can give the information to Recoup in order the number of parcel of the fruit and bags donated, the status, the maturation, the static, if they're mold, and the notification if this will be accepted or not by Recoup. Recoup is collecting this data and receive the material, and then with a bot telegram, with the simple use of a smartphone, will directly speak with, for example, the Red Cross. This Red Cross of south of Milan will be the actors that will be involved in our test phase. All these activities, all this tool that was designed by OpenDot were co-produced and co-designed with all the actors involved. So to finish, the benefits of these micro activities are connected to our general and overall goal of the city of Milan and all the actors. For example, for the wholesaler, this is a topic of time optimization. Time is crucial for all the wholesaler involved. Then for all the actors, the data, the automatically data collection is another important point, and also to predict the future products needs. For the two NGOs connected, so Recoup and Red Cross, the idea is also to help them to increase the number of donations and also to improve the coordination of the activity that, as you know, are volunteering, and so they need also management tool to help them to coordinate the volunteers. But also for Sogemi, so for the public company, this tool is interesting because help them to have a remote monitoring what happened about donation in this very big wholesale market, and also for have a level of digitalization of the processes and the documents that at the moment are just in an analog way. So also for the city of Milan, especially for the Milan food policy, all the activity are interesting for the reduction of the environmental impacts and the improvement of an innovative tool that can be tested in a very practical way. And in general, all the activities are helping to reduce and enhance the food surpluses that for us is our overall general goal. So thank you very much. If you need some information, you can just write me, or of course use the Q&A after the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrea, for this presentation about what's happening in Milan. Next speaker is Claudia Alessio. She's a research analyst for the Circle Cities program of Circle Economy. She has a background in economy and in environment, and her areas of expertise include waste management, financial analysis, operational research, environmental consulting services. And so Claudia will introduce us to what Circle Economy is doing when it comes to cities. The point here of the webinar is to go also beyond what we're doing at Reflow and also try to get some perspective about other approaches and be able to actually discuss that. So Claudia, if you want to share your presentation, and
yes,
I think the
hello
floor is
everybody.
yours. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I will share my screen now. All good? You see the slides? Yeah. So good morning, everyone. As everyone mentioned, I'm Claudia Alessio. I'm from Milan, actually, so it was very nice to. It's very nice to follow up a presentation about my own city. I actually know many of the projects that Andrea mentioned and Recoup very well as an organization. But yeah, for those who don't know us yet, Circle Economy is a foundation based in Amsterdam, and our aim is one of accelerating the global transition to a circular economy. Yeah, before I start, I really would like to thank Reflow for organizing this event and letting us present another perspective and other non-organization tools for circular cities. We definitely see this as an opportunity to learn from others, and I already found many synergies across various tools that were presented today. Indeed, after Valentina's presentation about the collaborative governance toolkit, today we are going to present circular economy tools for circular cities. In general, I think as a small introduction, I think, and I hope we can all agree that we're entering a decade of change. Sustainable alternatives seem better in every way and every day. Materials are becoming more scarce and more quickly, and the effect of climate change are exacerbating. So there has really never been a better time to focus on action and practical tools. At Circular Economy, we want to be part of this action-driven movement via the circular economy. We are an impact organization that connects and empowers a global community of cities, but also nations and businesses through mainly sharing knowledge, building tools, and conducting research. The mission is to deliver practical and scalable solutions to move towards the circular economy. But what is the current status of the circular economy? Well, thanks to our research, we estimated that in 2021, the world was only 8.6% circular. So that means that 8.6% of the materials that we use are cycled back into the economy, leaving a very big circularity gap. There is bad news in the sense that in 2018, the world was 9.1% circular. So global circularity is actually trending down. But there's a good side, of course, and we estimated actually that we would need to double this 8.6% to limit the global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius and therefore meet climate targets. But how can we achieve that? Well, as Erwin presented before, cities have a big role to play. As we've seen at the beginning of the webinar, over 50% of the population currently lives in cities, and that's destined to increase. Cities consume 75% of global resources and 2/3 around of energy, but they also are the home of 80% of global GDP. So even if cities are driving many of our environmental problems, they have a big global influence, and that makes it an ideal hotspot to drive change towards a circular, resilient future. In general, we think that the circular economy can yield great benefits, ranging from reduced greenhouse gas emissions to savings on landfill cost, improved security of materials, but also new job opportunities and local value creations for cities. This is why at Circular Economy, we have developed a few tools that cities can use to accelerate the transition. All our tools are accessible online for free. And today we will see how these tools work together, starting with our Circle City Scan. The Circle City Scan is a 4-step methodology the Circular Economy uses to guide cities on their journey from a linear to circular economy. We use data and evidence to inform multi-stakeholder decision-making to accelerate the transition. And so far we have worked on the scan with over 15 cities. I can go a bit more in detail on the approach. So it is a multi-stakeholder process. In fact, we know that cities have unique identity, culture, governance, and ambitions. So we aim to have a multi-stakeholder model that puts key urban change makers in one room with the aim to increase also ownership of the project and motivate different stakeholders to act. We do this in 4 different phases. So we start with a baseline assessment of the current state of the economy. We move to a material flow analysis to understand the urban metabolism of the city, a bit like they did in Milan for the food system. And after evidence is gathered, we co-create the strategies with the city and we put those strategies into action. And after each phase of this process, there is also a workshop with all stakeholders to validate the direction, validate data, but also to make sure that stakeholders are taking ownership of that direction. We can see a little bit more details each phase and which activities they entail. So indeed, as I said, we start by understanding the starting point with the baseline analysis of the local context. We experienced a lot with cities that when faced with the task of developing circular economy strategies, many cities don't know where to start. So we help cities prioritize sectors to focus on. We do this by comparing socioeconomic activity and household consumption, and basically their impacts on key metrics like jobs, emissions, GDP. And we all do this all analyzed within the political context, like policies and regulations, but also local business and community initiatives that already are in the circular economy and that kind of created the momentum for the circular economy to be scaled. Then we move once we have identified priority sectors, that could be food systems, like the case in Milan, or built environment. We can further analyze those using a material flow analysis. The material flow analysis combines different and multiple data points from different sources. And what it does is that it provides a visual overview of resource use and waste generation. The data helps urban change makers to better understand and pinpoint really where are the main challenges and recognize what role they could have in closing those material loops. Once we have identified these challenges in phase 3, we work together with local stakeholders to select the most relevant strategies. And we prioritize them through a series of curated workshops supported by the data previously gathered, but also an additional impact assessment, for example, scenario analysis, or also providing an overview of inspiring global best practices. Like this, we kind of aim to create a shared vision for the circular city and a long-term commitment by stakeholders. The last phase is the action planning. So the outcome of the scan can be further developed into either a roadmap or pilot projects in which kind of the roles and activities are laid out. And this can also be complemented by clear indicators and metrics to measure the progress in the long term. To date, we are building on the Netherlands front-running position on circularity, and we have helped 39 cities implementing over 200 circular pilot projects across Europe, North America, Africa, and Asia as well. But this is not enough. There are many other cities to reach, and many more are forming. And most importantly, some cities worldwide cannot afford advisors to manage and digest all the available information. This is why, to double down our impact, we created also a digital tool, Gambate Cities, developed from what we used to call the Circle City Scan tool. So yeah, worldwide there are and will increasingly be tons of metrics, informations, and data sets. And while they might paint a picture globally, they don't necessarily always inspire action, and they don't offer clear insights on what to do. Gambatte is a Japanese saying that is used, it's kind of like a good luck, but in more than that, it encourages people to actually try harder and do their best. In fact, this tool wants to bridge the gap between data sets and doing, following the main steps of the Circle City Scan. So it does provide easy to digest data at the city level, with the aim to make it easy for people to put a plan together and actually start taking action. We can see more or less how it works. It's still also in the prototype version, so more to come. But for now, like the overview is that cities can follow 5 steps. First, they log in and they select the city in the tool. Then they can explore data. We have material, employment, and emission data for over 4,000 cities around the world, thanks to our digital team and partners. And that is also shown in an intuitive way, so it can be organized based on the user's priority. Based on the data, then cities can identify thematic areas to focus on. For now, we have food systems, consumer goods, built environment, mobility and transportation, logistics, water systems, and energy systems. And then, thanks to the Solution Explorer, cities can explore circular solutions tailored to each thematic area, and learn how solutions have been implemented elsewhere through inspiring case studies from all over the world. Finally, cities can learn from others, also thanks to our circular journey feature that allows cities to compare data with others that have already started taking action towards a circular economy and see who is further down the line. As an example, actually, as Andrea mentioned, we can talk about the food system, because in the tool, the food system has been the first thematic area to be developed. And we did so in collaboration with ICLEI throughout the course of last year. What it means is that now we have 25 circular solutions tailored to the food system, complemented by over 130 case studies from cities around the world. And solutions and relative case studies are classified by the new 5R framework, the Circular City Action Framework, developed by ICLEI, Metabolic, and Circular Economy. The 5Rs are rethink, so meaning that we want to create a new enabling environment for the circular economy in cities. Regenerate, so offering products and services that benefit nature and the planet. Reduce, so doing more with less. Reuse, and recover at end of life. Examples of case studies in the tool include the Milan food policy, for example, but also example of government promoting edible green infrastructure. For example, what's happening in the Campania region as part of the social agricultural program. And other initiatives like Toronto, the city of Toronto promoting community composting. And actually, now that I remember, we do have also the case study on Recoup, so you can read about it, and we're trying to spread the word about these nice initiatives. The tool actually showcases many case studies thanks to another digital tool, the Knowledge Hub Cities Collection. This is an online page that for now has over 500 cases from all over the world that show how cities can apply circular economy principles to reduce emission, but also minimize waste, and in the long term become future-proof. The Knowledge Hub is actually a way for us to break down knowledge silos around the circular economy in Wikipedia style. So it's kind of an open access platform. It's owned by the community, and anyone can update an existing entry or add a new one. So if anyone wants to contribute and share an inspiring case study from the city, please follow the link on the slide. I've already looked in the chat, and there is an example from Brisbane on textiles. So it would be nice to kind of create a community around circular economy practices. As I said before, the Gambatte is actually just in the prototype version. We are currently piloting the tool in collaboration with ICLEI with 4 African cities and 4 US cities. We will test our frameworks, validate data, and test the full product. And we're looking also for other cities to join in the process. We will officially launch then in May 2022, but more is also in the making. In fact, the aim of Gambatte is to bring together all our tools in one ecosystem of products. And soon Gambatte for this will include tailored features that work also for nations based on our work with the Circularity Gap report, and for businesses based on our circular assessment tool. And last but not least, thanks to our collaboration with UNEP, we are also trying to merge Gambatte with our circular job monitor to map circular jobs in the world. Next year, at the beginning of next year, we will upload circular jobs data for over 100 cities. And yeah, to conclude, circular economy's experience has taught us that with the city scan, but also with Gambatte, like these kind of tools represent a very effective way to start the scene and set a starting point for cities. First, they can be used as an advocacy tool for broadening the understanding of circularity, moving beyond only waste management, but also to a narrative that is more focused on resource management. Additionally, I think the visualization of data in this kind of tool is really helpful to engage stakeholders and serves as a communication tool for different agents and various departments of the city to actually start a conversation together, assess what each department is doing with regards to circularity and what is the current status of the circular economy based on the key indicators that we have in this tool. So then I think like also by providing actionable insights, this tool can help create a vision for the future. They show a journey that is constantly kind of like reminds cities of the end goal. And this helps create a sustainable buy-in for different stakeholders and different people among city staff. And finally, tools do help overcome the inertia by providing tangible examples that help stakeholders understand how to act and prioritize action to undertake first. For example, while piloting Gambatte, we had a city that started looking at the circular economy from a waste management perspective, but then expanded to a more systemic conversation at other level of governance. So this is the end of the presentation. As I mentioned before, we are looking for other cities to join our pilot phase, and we're adding profiles for over 100 cities for the jobs side. So if you want to know your profile, you might be one of those 100 cities, maybe Milan is one of that. So you can reach out to me or the product manager, Laura Tasma, that is also, whose email is also on the slide. So we can activate the feature on the tool for you and you can start using it. I will also post the link to the tool as we have now in the prototype online, so you can have a look around. And in general, for other questions related more to the Circular City scan, you can contact me directly. So I think now I can give the floor back to Erwan, and we can have some Q&A and concluding words.
Thank you, Claudia. I will just indeed share that screen. When it comes to question and answers, and I see between the chat and the Q&A that there are indeed a couple of questions that that came about. Koen from the Netherlands, I believe, was asking you, Claudia, if you can give some specific examples of metrics for circularity that you may have in some of your tools.
Well, in the tools for now, we explore mass, so like domestic material consumption for the mass side. Circular jobs is something that like we define. We have a whole methodology that we developed in the course of the past years as part of our Circular Jobs initiative. So you can find more information on how we calculate those also online. And emissions is also different data sets. So I think like all the information is online, but like in terms of the data used in the tool is mass, jobs, and emissions.
All right, thank you. A question from Ash that was in the chat actually saying there are a lot of different possible circular solutions in cities, a lot of research gaps on the best future circular solution. And the question I believe is both for Vale and Claudia. So how do your tools deal with these dilemmas and uncertainties? The fact that there's a plurality of solutions and also some research gaps. Valentina, maybe do you want to start?
Yeah, I can start, and I think that yes, it's a big gap to bridge. I would say that in our case, what we are trying to do with our toolkit is be transparent as much as possible, meaning that we perfectly know that there is the theory and there is the practice, and the practice is more difficult and there's a lot of uncertainty. But the reality is that where we are approaching this big transition, we have to accept this kind of uncertainty. So in our case, what we try to do is to find this approach of providing this loose compendium of tools. As I said previously, what we are trying to provide with is not a prescriptive journey, but something that could be more generative of possible different journey, since every scenarios and every situation in cities are different. So that's why we decided to avoid to provide this kind of a specific journey in our case. That said, the reality is that is not easy at all. For example, we think that in our case, for our collection of tools, every user can deal with this kind of canvases. But the reality is that at the end, every city needs to run several activities in order to connect the dots and be able to engage expertise in order to facilitate all this process, connect them, and basically base this kind of process on a systemic approach. So I think it's it's very difficult to bridge this kind of gap. But from our side, we try to overcome this gap, let's say, with this kind of approach, even if we are aware that is not enough, obviously.
Thank you. Thank you, Valentina. Maybe Claudia, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, sure. I think like I can resonate with the fact that it is difficult. And in the tool, for example, for Gambatte, the point for us was really like to focus on tangible action first, and then provide examples so that actions and also how data flows into the tool becomes tangible and real, so that you can see how others have already implemented circular solutions. Of course, it is difficult to have a kind of a holistic approach to all the circular solutions that could be there, but by providing actionable insights and examples, so that we try to help cities move forward.
Yeah, thank you. What I could take as also a sort of, you know, combined learning, looking at those two approaches, the toolkit on one hand, and the great set of tools, digital tools that you're pushing forward, Claudia, is that we see similarities in terms of, you know, approach with multi-stakeholders, use of data that may lead to material flow analysis that lead to strategies and planning. We see also the importance of inspiration that can feed into, you know, designing new strategies. So I think those are really the similarities. And one question that also echoes one remark from Dina in the chat that said, how do you think it's easy for cities to engage only based on digital tools without direct facilitation? And I think that's maybe where we can see some maybe distinction, either push towards a purely digital approach or go towards, you know, set of tools, canvases that actually have to be facilitated offline with different stakeholders. And I think that's where the balance is still unclear, that we might need both, but we don't know at which time. So I don't know if you have some reflections related to that, maybe Claudia and Vale as closing words, because we're getting close to the end of the session.
Well, for us, I think like you touched upon a very good point. We developed a digital tool after our experience with the Circle City scan, and the scan is actually something that we do in collaboration with the cities. That we do have workshops, we engage with people, so it's a non-digital environment. Of course, with the COVID, had to become a more digital one for the engagement online. But these tools work together. So for cities that are have like less resources and capacity, the tool is a good starting point. But then our Circle City scan is the fuller engagement process, has the full engagement process with the stakeholders and with the city in a co-development space.
All right, thanks. So I guess it sums it up. So a mix of both definitely as the way forward. We unfortunately cannot answer all the questions at this stage because we are really reaching the end of that webinar. I would be happy if you actually spend some time both on the Circular Economy website. There's been some links shared on the chat, but also please have a look at the Reflow project website. There's also a forum where you can actually continue this set of questions and conversations. And there's also a LinkedIn group, the Reflow Circular Cities community, where we also try to engage different stakeholders in actually asking and providing insights on the challenges towards making cities more circular. So please do not hesitate to go on those different links. The presentation will be shared after the webinar, and you will have also some kind of recap blog post after this session. Please be also aware that there are upcoming webinars starting from January 2022 next year, where we'll address other challenges in relation to the transition to circular cities. So I hope you've learned something during this short hour, and thank you for your participation. Thank you to the 3 speakers, and see you around. Bye.
Bye, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.